If you like what I have to say, these are the people that deserve the credit. They are my students and researchers at the Institute that do amazing work. And by the way, as you can tell, if you're not having fun doing what you're doing it wrong. So what do we want to talk about today? I want to have two parts of my conversation with you. I want to get into your client's brain. In fact, I want to get into your brain. You know, in order to do what Swan was talking about, relationships, friendships, leadership, you must not only know yourself, you must know them. You must know the context that they are living in, how they're thinking, how they're processing information, and how to cut through the clutter when necessary. So I would say over the past couple of years, there is something that characterizes how we've all been living. By the way, class participation is 10% of your grade today. You're allowed to shout out answers. COVID, pandemic, but more importantly, stress. Think about it. Just when we thought the pandemic was done, we had inflation, we had war, people even talk about maybe even nuclear war, whatever it might be, price of bacon, price of gas. You see, when you talk to people about their financial security, that's not what they're thinking. They want to know what financial security, their longevity means in the context of all this noise that's around us. So when you're stressed, what do? Well, a lot of us read the newspaper. Imagine this, all the articles in the New York Times, yes, we do these things at MIT, we counted up the number of articles that were headlined with crisis. And look at the numbers of how they've grown. Just when you thought things were getting better, we're on par to have as much crisis in the news as we did before. Now, when you're stressed and you're in a state of crisis, what do? I saw all of you last night. You're doing this. Well, not really. Maybe a few of us are doing that. But if we're honest, when we need advice, when we're in stress, you know where we really go? Even when we have a medical problem, we go here. We go to Dr. Google. And just to show you something, over time, the number of us searching on things around stress and anxiety from 2004 to present has gone up 3x. So it's not just a matter of where you think you're stressed, everyone else is. By the way, when I say everyone else, I want you to think about this. The darker the state, the greater the number of stressed people doing searches. I don't know what was going on in North Dakota in 2004, but they stood alone. But the good news is we're all whacked out now at 222. And I don't want to leave my cousins from Canada, and I do have many in Quebec and in Ontario. We're stressed up there as well, apparently. So if you look at all the stressed out countries, these are the ones that are the highest out there doing searches on what do I do next? And by the way, that's your opportunity. They're going to be looking for someone to look to for navigating their future, navigating their longevity. So, when you're faced with something you don't understand, you don't know, you don't like, and I hate snakes, we go to what we call the reptilian brain. It's back underneath my bald head right here. And when you see something that you don't know, you ask yourself quietly, am I going to eat it or is it going to eat me? So you go into fight or flight mode. Your prospects, your clients, 90% of us in the country and around the world, these days, we're in fight or flight mode. So what does that mean? What's the psychology of how we're thinking about the world? Well, we go to the news and we look for what's going on, and we find that the news is, frankly, it's constant, it's conflicting, and frankly, it's confusing. We're not sure what is inflation, what's transitory, what's pandemic, what shot we should have, how many of them we should have. And what happens is, this is a very geeky little curve I want to show you, and all of you feel it every day. How many of you, by the way, are jocks? You know, you're the people that know your pulse rate. Raise your hands. You know what this is? Are you in the zone? You know what this is? If I stress you out just enough to keep you excited, you'll pay attention. You'll do what I want you to do. But if I press you too far, saying, by the way, you've got to quadruple your numbers by next quarter, I'm going to push you over to the other end, and you'll shut down. One of the challenges we have with stress is we need just enough to keep you up, but too much shuts you down. Your clients, in many cases, your customers out there, are on that level, if you will, of maybe being shut down. So I don't know about you, but my mom said anytime I had a problem, Joe, it's all in your head. Well, I'm showing you a scan, fMRI scan, that shows that when you're in stress, it is all in your head. Your brain fires up differently. It's not just behavior, it's physiological. And something else. And this is where you can really help your clients. Do you know that when you're stressed behind the wheel, somebody cuts you off? Do you know you're most stressed 15 to 20 minutes after that happened? The cortisol's running through your veins, you're getting all stressed. But here's what happens. Your physical vision, your peripheral vision begins to tunnel because you're going into fight or flight mode. And guess what happens? When we talk about finances and people get nervous around finance, we go into tunnel vision. I don't understand, I don't want to hear it, just tell me what I need to do now. You have to take them by the hand and show them it's going to be okay. So think about Japan, talk about a bad month, bad week, bad year. They had an earthquake, then they had a tidal wave, and then a nuclear meltdown. Well, believe it or not, if you looked at the people that lived through that constant stress, these are brain cells. Their brains actually shrank. When we're stressed, we start making fewer connections. We start listening less. We don't want to hear anything. That's when it's the most important for you to be able, not just as Swan was saying, to have a relationship or a friendship, but that leadership quality to be able to tell them it's going to be okay and we move forward. Now, I run a thing called the Age Lab, so of course age matters. I got good news and bad news for all of you. As you age, you actually start to filter out negative information. How many of us have heard the phrase, or at my age, started to use it, life is too short for that? You know what that means? I don't want to hear it, I don't want to deal with it. And by the way, as a result, if you get over 60, life's pretty good. We'll come back to that in a minute. The bad news is, you start to not notice real things that you better pay attention to. Like, Joe, too close to the edge, you're going to fall off the stage. Now, if you're younger, you want to know the rules. You want to look at the negative information. These are the folks who are looking for motivation. So you don't have to study this chart, but I'm going to break us all into 3 groups, which I'll come back to later. I've got great news for you. We all know that it's great being 18 to 21. Generally speaking, you have your parents' credit card, life is good. Then you got to get a job. Look at that curve. It starts to go downhill. Physical, emotional, happiness, and life. I'm sorry for everyone in the room that's between 37 and 57 years old. It is the lowest point of your well-being. Sorry for that. But, remember what I said about being older? Look at this. Over age 60, suddenly you're on more medications, you're divorced, your kids aren't talking to you, but life is pretty good. But what you're looking at is a curve you should learn. Younger people want to know the rules. What's the guardrail? How do you motivate me to move forward? Those of us in the middle, I don't know where my kids are in the next 30 minutes, and you're trying to get me to plan for the next 30 years. Be cognizant of that. Have bites of conversation with me. Don't ask for breakfast. And when it comes to being over 60 or over 70, don't tell me what I'm going to lose. Don't tell me my risk. Empower me to manage that risk so I don't leave my partner with that risk. Now, you needed some guy from MIT to tell you that boys and girls are different, right? Well, we are. And by the way, guys, don't get too uppity. This is all going to go downhill for us in a moment. Men and women are very different. Under stress, men need to do something. We got to do something. We got to take action. There's a problem. We, after all, have to show leadership, confidence. We don't all have to show competence. That's another issue. Women, on the other hand, not necessarily better decisions or feel that they have any less urgency. They look for advice. They phone a friend. Women are your catalyst for client relationships. We'll come back to that in a moment. They're the ones who want to talk, want more information. As I write my book, The Future is Female, my 2 daughters and my wife and the cat they fixed told me to say that. The other thing is that when we're under stress, we're risk averse. I don't know what you're selling, what you're doing, but if it sounds risky, I can't deal with it. So cut it up in small chunks when you present the information, the product, the process, whatever it is you're talking about. And by the way, when I'm under stress, when I'm in that fight or flight mood, if it's ambiguous and I don't fully understand it, forget it. Even if it's a winning lottery ticket and it looks like there's a chance I'm going to lose, not going to play with it. So we're going to end up with some really geeky sociological, psychological terms, and I'll cut them into English in a minute. We're going to feel normlessness, meaninglessness, powerlessness. You know what that means? If I don't understand it, I'm under constant stress, the news doesn't make any sense, the experts seem to be wrong, our experts are always conflicting each other. The norms, that is the rules, are broken, so there's nothing going on. Meaningless, I can't make sense of this. But here's the parts you, as leaders, as relationship builders, as friendships, break through and say you are not powerless. You can take command of your future. Let me guide you. So how many of you remember what you were doing March of 2020? We saw you in Sam's Clubs, Costco's, all other places. When we are stressed, we want to take action. We want to do something. So we did actually, and people made fun of all of us that we're buying toilet paper by the pallet load. But the fact of the matter is, that was the one thing we knew we could take control, and for the most part, we knew we would need. And by the way, technology became the second toilet paper. So that's your lesson in Psych 101 around stress and how your clients, and frankly, all of you, think when you have those down moments and whatnot, do a reality check as to what might be putting you in that narrow where you don't see that future, you don't see that hill that you're going to climb, that makes WFG what you are today. So here's the so what. Your clients are not only facing the now. I've got great news for you. You see all these cute kids? You know why they're cute, by the way? They're not teenagers yet. That's why they're still cute. But children born today in nearly half the industrialized world are likely to live 100 years. Think about what that means. How many jobs will you have? How many times will you move? How many Toyotas will you buy, if you will, after what we were talking about with Swan? Will my wife for 36 years want to hear me tell the same jokes over and over again? All of you are amazing at financial literacy. I want to introduce to you what should be the overarching goal, longevity literacy. You cannot do anything without financial security, much like electricity. But unless you define what you do, the products, the processes, the conversations you have, in the context of my life, I don't get it. So I want to walk you through some storylines, if you will, across those three age groups. This is how you make that contact. This is how you make yourself not just available and acceptable and affordable, but purposeful. I need you now. Don't tell me about a future self of me far in the distance. How do you relate to actually solve my problems today? So as Swan was talking earlier, I want you to think about it. This is a study we did not too long ago, less than a year ago, on what is the ideal financial professional. And we asked people across the country, nice sample. I want you to look at what was in the red. Yes, there was the finance, the complexity, the risk management, I mean money, my retirement plan. But you know something? That's not what makes you you. The reason why I'm always excited to come speak to all of you is that you fill in the other gaps that apparently clients are looking for. They want a confidant. They want an educator. Swan mentioned it earlier. They want a coach. And yes, they want a friend. They want someone who envisions that future. They want someone to help them navigate longevity. Longer life, approaching 85, 95, 100 years, is new territory. We don't know how to navigate that. All of you have got the processes, the products, and indeed the conversations to help guide me. So I'm going to ask you a question. This will show how many of you are real geeks and how many of you that are actually fun to go to the bar with. When you go to put together a puzzle, what do? What's the first thing you do? You in the cheap seats, what's the first thing you do? I just see there's a few geeks over here. There must be a few engineers. They want to get the corners. They put the corners. No one likes you. The rest of us use the picture. What's the picture on the box? When it comes to longevity, when it comes to retirement, what to do next? Most of us are going without that picture. We need someone to not tell us what to do, but what the possibilities might be, to be able to navigate that future. And here's the thing. As I navigate my 100 years, my 30, 40, 50 years, whatever that person may have left, you know, there was a study done by, there's an art school up the river from us. What's it called? Oh yeah, Harvard, that's it. Great studies said that, when you go to buy a drill, are you actually buying a drill? Are you buying the brand? Are you buying the product, the price, the color? What are you buying? You're buying a hole. You're not buying the product. You're not buying the brand. If you want to be real innovators, if you want to make real contact, you want to ensure that people know you are there to sell them solutions, that you understand their problem today and you can anticipate what it will be tomorrow, and the solution you are offering, be it a product, be it a process, but it's going to help them manage and navigate through. And by the way, always look at other parts of your life for inspiration of how to reach your customers and clients. Solutions sell. When you go to buy lettuce, Fresh Express learned that, gee, you don't really want to buy lettuce, do you? What were you buying? A salad. And so they cut up everything, put the carrots in, some cases dressing, and we just pray that they say they triple washed it. And you drop it into the bowl, you've got a salad. Best Buy realized that you weren't in Best Buy to buy a television. Your job that you were trying to achieve was what? To watch TV. So they created Geek Squad saying, okay, you buy it, install it, your job is to sit on your butt on Sunday and watch it. And then finally, Volvo is now saying, you really don't want to buy a car. You don't want to own a car. Toyota's doing the same thing. All the car companies are. We're now thinking about subscription. Because what you're buying is mobility. You're not buying a piece of tin that costs you once a month. So what are the jobs of longevity that you need to start steering people toward or for? Let's think about those three groups, if you will. Remember, the folks that are motivated, the people that are muddling through, those that want to manage the future. Well, guys, I told you this was going to go downhill for you. The fact of the matter is that the future is female, has always been. The fact of the matter is 80 cents to 90 cents on the dollar of almost anything worth buying, from automobiles to healthcare to housing to consumer products, are directed, influenced, or directly purchased by a female. Do you know that Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, companies like that, for the most part, don't even do focus groups with men anymore? Heck, my wife buys my razors anyway, so what's the point? But the fact of the matter is, she's the chief consumer officer. So even though you may have a guy in front of you that's very much in control and the breadwinner and everything else, she's the one who actually knows how the money's being spent and is often the one that's left holding the bag after he planned poorly. But keep in mind the following. She didn't get this job easily. She is busy. She is juggling childcare, elder care. She's got a spouse who can't make a tuna fish sandwich. And by the way, she also has a life and a career. This tells you that she's not really going to be excited when you say, well, let's get together for lunch and we can talk about this, or well, let's talk about something in the future. No, you had better be realistic, responsive to what she needs now to understand where she's going in the future. I was warned, that's enough mansplaining for the day. So let's talk about the motivation years, the younger years, where younger people are. Here's the conversations you should be thinking about. School debt. 35% of people go to college. 35% of them, 100% of them usually walk out with some sort of debt. That is putting a crunch, not just on them, but think about this. Research we did at the Age Lab, you know who else is paying school debt? People in their 50s. Some of it's their own debt, some of it's their kids. And by the way, a lot of grandparents are sacrificing their own financial well-being and security to make sure that grandchild has that education. This is a conversation that is full of emotion. And if I can leave you with a soundbite today, remember, emotion puts money in motion. Don't be afraid of those conversations. That's where relationships are built, friendships are constructed, and leadership is defined.